Welcome to Unit 6 of EDSE 512. We will be talking about several important topics in this unit, but one of the main areas of focus, which your project will also center around, is the concept of present levels of performance section. And you'll see that we've got an assignment on that will be due at the end of this unit. That is your graded requirement or expectation for this unit, and it is called the PLAAFP activity. You'll see what that stands for here in a bit, but we may pronounce it as PLAFP. I'm just going to refer to it as the present levels activity. And there also is a midterm survey that you can complete if you're interested in giving feedback on your course experience so far. We would love to hear your thoughts. So you can see that Unit 6 is a 2-week unit, and we do have some reading assigned out of the procedural manual. You'll always be watching that column for the reading that needs to get done for this unit. And then mentioned here as well in the assignments is this present levels activity. We do have IEP critiques coming up. As you have access to the entire course shell, you can look ahead if you choose to, but it is requested that you finish this present levels activity before you do anything on the first IEP critique. And that's because this background information from the present levels activity is very important. So per usual, we've got a PowerPoint here with summary of some of the important materials for this week. And this PowerPoint in particular covers the concept of team responsibilities, and there are also some key terms and definitions. So some of these terms we'll just start out and take a look. We do have the procedural manual linked here, but as we go, important to remember, ESP is not really something commonly used, but extended school year, ESY, you'll hear very frequently. So extended school year is something that students may be eligible for. It is a small percentage of students, but it's those who have a significant concern with regression or some predictive factors that would lead them to ESY eligibility, and that will be several weeks of intensive service time and targeted intervention over the summer in order to keep students from that decline that is observed over a period of time with data as evidence for that extended school year eligibility. So as you move through this PowerPoint, you'll see that there are several important terms. Obviously, the referral is when we're getting started with that IEP evaluation and we're making sure that we're obtaining that written consent from the parent or guardian. So as you go through this PowerPoint, you'll see important information with timelines. So for instance, when you've got that IEP, you'll need to hold the reviews at least once a year. The reason I say at least is because they may come more quickly than within 1 year with that 12-month time period. For instance, if a student is having some significant problems at school or the IEP in place is not working, especially if we're trying to review and consider a change of placement, or maybe we're feeling that the situation is not indeed the least restrictive environment based on the present levels of performance, we might need to meet more quickly than that year deadline, and that's okay. But traditionally we'll do a year. It's definitely not going to go past that for an IEP review, where we go through the IEP, update the present levels of performance, update all of the goals and accommodations as appropriate, and make sure that the service times are appropriate for the students' present levels of performance as well. So you'll be doing these reviews roughly once a year. And then within 3 years, no later than 3 years after that evaluation, the initial, for instance, if a child is just entering special education, you'll have to hold a re-evaluation. And that timeline, as mentioned before, might be shorter than 3 years, for instance, if a change of placement is being considered. However, you won't go past that 3-year deadline. More information regarding review and timelines here. So do look through that PowerPoint document, but as it is lengthy, we will move on. So the initial IEP versus the review IEP. Obviously, the initial IEP would be the first IEP. And then the IEP review, as mentioned before, would be conducted roughly once a year unless there is a lack of progress, as mentioned here in the bullet, or maybe if something has changed, then you might be meeting more frequently than that. IEP team members. Now this is a very beautiful and important visual. Okay, so this is a chart that's provided to us. It came out of the CDE IEP Procedural Guidance Manual, and this is to help us to know who is essential and required to be at an IEP meeting. And this could be one of many types of meetings, but here listed we've got the initial or the eligibility review, etc. So you can see essential and required attendance. Obviously, we want the student to be present whenever possible, and required attendance is that general education teacher. We legally cannot proceed holding the meeting without the general education teacher present. And then the special education teacher generally would be the case manager. And other information here regarding those who should be present, who might be optional, and those who must be invited in order to participate. So for student participation in the IEP, we've hit on this a bit before. Students obviously in that 15 plus transition planning should be at the IEP meeting unless there's some really significant reason not to. For instance, if you run into a tricky situation where the student absolutely refuses to come, then that's something that you have to work through with the student and the family. But the very important thing is that the invitation is presented and that it's made clear that the student is not only invited, but quite welcome, and that the student's presence is desired at that meeting. And that's a good thing to partner with a parent or guardian about as well, and to prepare for ahead of time. IEP meetings can be a little difficult for students. They might find it dull or boring. That's something that I've heard from students before, lots of paperwork. But B, it's hard to talk about needs and areas of difficulty. And the meetings, we're pretty frank. We're talking about those topics, and we want to make sure that we discuss them in a supportive manner, whether the student is or is not in the room. So an IEP cover page, this is just information for you regarding what would go onto a cover page. So this is something you can go through the CDE IEP forms website, signature page as well, and you can review those forms, and we'll be working with these on case studies. You'll see several of these maybe pop up as we proceed. But that signature page is very important. So make sure that you get those signatures for anybody attending the meeting. And then one of our most important topics for the unit is the present levels of performance. Okay, so this is the PLAAFP, which stands for the present levels of academic achievement and functional performance. I shorten this just for the sake of language and convenience to present levels of performance when I'm talking about it here. But the PLAAFP is the document that we'll look over here. So everything that needs to go in here, it's beautiful to have a very comprehensive present levels section. Again, if you're not sure if detail is necessary or relevant, put it into the present levels. Obviously, being concise is valuable, but you'll want a section that really paints a full picture of the child. So you need to add whatever it takes to get to that point. That might be observations, it might be a current grade update. It's valuable to include attendance records. You might include behavior referrals over the past several years, anything that paints a picture of really what's going on. And then you'll want to get some really solid information, teacher reports, anecdotal information, the summary of the most recent evaluation. And obviously, while emphasizing the strengths, you're also going to cover the student's needs. So when you do gather information from teachers, you might interview them and say to them, please share with me what goes well for the student academically and functionally or socially emotionally, and please share with me the areas of need or what's going on for growth. So there are a couple links included for you to browse here related to the present levels, and then a little website field trip for you. So you can just click these and it'll open up for you in a new window. Council for Exceptional Children, and then here we have links for modules. So kind of in line with what we were just talking about, the IEP team and who would be present for that, or who is a member of the team. You'll see that there are slides with that information. And when we say parent, obviously, as you know, that would be parent, parents, guardian, whoever is legally responsible and has educational custody and decision-making rights for the child. So handouts for the presentations if you're interested in those, and then another website for you. And then we've got materials for developing present levels of performance. So we hit on some of this virtually already, but you'll see mentioned here the value of working with a student and with parents or guardians to develop a really comprehensive present levels section. You want this to be strong and to address everything that's going on with the child. Again, doing that stranger test, we're passing this IEP document on to a new state, a new district, a new school. Maybe we won't get to talk or communicate with them at all. Do they have what they need? That's how we know that we have a strong present levels section. So we'll spend the rest of this video going over the requirements for this present levels activity. Okay, so down here, we've obviously have the requirement for completing this assignment and all of their, readings and links and PowerPoints in this unit before you get going on the critiques that are coming up. We do have a case study. Her name is Ariana, so you'll download her case study, read about her, and you'll learn some information regarding her present levels that's given to you, some different scores for her, for instance. And then you're going to need to determine which information that's given to you needs to be added to the present levels section and to put that into your own words. So this is an opportunity for you to summarize everything that's given to you. You will need a statement about the student's needs and the impact of disability, and that will be submitted here, obviously, on Canvas. All you need to upload is the present levels form completed. So this link for DIBELS is simply providing information regarding interpretation of results and what these results mean in case you're not familiar with that measure. But here is the form that you'll be filling out. So if you're not sure what to put in a form, these little blurbs below the bold headings can be really helpful. If this is a question, you'll want to make sure that everything you write clearly answers it. If it's a statement, you'll want to make sure that you hit upon every point that is listed to you. Now, as we know, in case studies, we might not see everything we need. So please feel free to supplement, to add, to make connections as appropriate. You will not be penalized for putting in something that is not clearly and explicitly given to you in the case study document. You really want to bulk this up with anything that you think would be relevant. Okay, so don't worry about expanding as you're able, because the bottom line, the point of this assignment is to demonstrate the development of a really strong present levels section. So you will address each of these headings, needs and impact, and then down below we have parent-student input, and that is the comprehensive present levels. So obviously the documentation here for transition would be relevant for a student 15 plus, and so if you find that that's not relevant, you can make a note that at this time it is not relevant. Present levels, summary of the most recent evaluation, of course, and then results of anything else that is given to you academically, socially, emotionally, functionally, behaviorally. You'll really want to take that and run with it as you write this up in your own words. Okay, so you're summarizing and developing that into a report that a parent would want to see. As mentioned here, you'll want to list educational and developmental strengths and all of these different areas as indicated by formal or informal assessment. And we know the differences between those because we've been working on those quite a bit. So you'll be doing all of those sections. And then for the needs and impact, this is the section that is less focused on the strengths like up above and more focused on what concern are we seeing with the eligibility, with the academic needs, or any other types of needs? What is the impact, and how does this affect the child's progress in general education, participation in the classroom, and any other relevant or appropriate activities? So please, my biggest word of advice on this is just to please be sure to answer the questions or statements that are provided to you below the bold headings. If you can comprehensively answer those, you'll be in business with this. And then obviously parent-student input, anything relevant that you glean from the document would be included here. So I'm looking forward to the creativity and to the critical thinking that you all put into these. Please be in touch with questions.